This is our final class of the semester. Boy, time goes fast, eh? Before you know it, we are at the end of the semester and the end of the year. Hope you guys had a lot of fun learning different things, and not just my class, but the other classes as well. And let's have this last final class this morning. I'm gonna get into the motion design uh, animation in Photoshop. It's just an extension, a continuation of last week's lesson, which is the frame-by-frame animation. All right, if you have any questions, you can always ask during or after the class. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen here and let me know if you can't see my screen. If you can, I'm assuming it's good. So this is this is class number 14. I mean, I know we have usually today we would do presentations in this class, but because of the things that have changed in the past few years, I don't know if you guys are doing presenting your composite 2 assignments. It might be in a different class. So we had some extra room to squeeze in this extra little module here, which is always great. So are you doing presentations at all for your composite 2 assignments, or you guys did them already? Let me just give me a show hands of put up your hands if you are, if you're not. Are you doing presentations? You guys are not doing presentations with the composite 2? Hello, guys, come on. Yes, you are. Yes, you're not. Oh, you are doing the presentations. All right. Okay. So let's so if you are, then I would like to, maybe I would, I don't know if it's in person, I guess this week. Guess I'll figure it out. I like to see them myself. Maybe if they can record them, that'll be also good by Roberto or Felicia's class. I don't know who you guys are doing it with. I'll ask you after, okay? I won't disrupt my recording right now. We'll talk about this later. So back to the module here, we have the video motion design zip file. So this one you can download if you like. Just click on the link here. Okay. What else we have here? So this was the motion design for web, a web ready folder with animation, and this is the video motion design folder. Okay, just making sure that everyone is there. Now keep in mind also, all your stuff is due by the I think we have this one due here. The 12th. So you have the composite due on the 12th and the motion design due on the 13th. So today's the 12th, obviously, that's when your composite assignment is due. And tomorrow you have the motion design assignment as well. They're both assignments. This one's more like the composite. We call it project if it's bigger, but they're both assignments. So one's doing the 12th, one's doing the 13th. Okay, just a quick reminder there. And let's go ahead and start with this. So if you download this file, it'll look like this one here. It's video motion design. It looks very similar to the previous one we did. The difference is this one has a different setting, and I can show you some of the more advanced replacement features that you can utilize in Photoshop. All right, so I'm going to open maybe this one up here to demonstrate that as well. Right. So if I open this up, you'll notice how it looks a little different than last week. Okay. We swapped out the one of the logos. And the way we did that is because when we placed the actual design or the logo inside our timeline, I made sure the placement was a linked placement, not a embedded placement. So the difference is when you go to File, a place embedded versus linked. Remember how I always mentioned to you there's a fundamental difference, and the main thing is if you have an older version, it was just under File Place. The embedded and the linked were split afterwards as an added feature, where you can edit the files externally if they're linked, of course. Again, going back, it was just place. There was no, there was no two different ones. Place just meant place embedded. So there was no linked feature basically. So having this linked feature creates an advantage because you can literally replace these graphics, not just from a static design, even a more like a motion design like this one. You can do it afterwards. So let me demonstrate that quickly as well because it's important to know. And we're going to go ahead and so there's my timeline here. This was done frame by frame, so I'm just going to switch it back quickly here. There we go. You shouldn't switch this back and forth afterwards, but I had to do it just for the demonstration purposes here. So we have the frame by frame animation, right? At any time, if you're doing an advertising campaign and you have to replace some of these sponsors and logos, notice how we had Air Canada before with Air Miles. Well, we switched the airlines out to WestJet and Toronto Maple Leafs, right? So the way we did that is we identified the layer where it's sitting on, and then you just basically right click and you can do what's called replace contents. It's that simple. Okay. I know it's hard to dig up because there's other options like relink to file and relink to library. These are all different, although they kind of resemble a similar thing. Other way people did them is they double click and you can change it this way, save over the old one. It'll automatically replace this one. That should be your last resort. I really don't like to do this because then you lose the original graphic. I much more prefer to right click and just replace it this way. Okay. So basically replace contents. And another strategic thing is to make sure these are similar sizes. So this was close to 1200 pixels, and so was this one. If that's not the case, make sure you resize them accordingly and just have it sitting there so you can replace it easily. Let me just go back to the Air Miles logo, and that's basically how easy it is to replace these contents. Same as the WestJet. I'm going to go to that one as well. So this was the original Air Canada logo. I'm going to go replace. And I can change it with, I don't have the Air Canada logo here, but I can probably grab it from the previous folder. I think I have to go back this way. I think I just replaced it. Anyways, I'll grab one from the other folder here. It's good to keep things in the same location, of course. You don't want to go outside the folder in another folder to grab the actual logo. So make sure let's replace it with the Expedia logo. Okay, like that. Now this is what can happen if the size is not correct. Then you have to literally go back and replace all the files here. Because if you do it on this layer, basically, right, it's only going to do that layer, right? So you got to be careful. I don't want to go layer by layer and, replace this logo. Actually, it might just work, actually. Actually, it's fine. It did work. You can transform it if you want afterwards, but I'd still be very careful. I would make sure it's the same size because sometimes you might have to account for it everywhere else. I didn't see the need for me to do match layers across frames, which that was another solution. If this didn't work out, you can just match the sizing across. Hopefully, you don't have to do a lot of editing with this. It does get finicky and it does get complicated. My advice to you is to keep it simple and just to have this thing, planned out really well before you execute. And then you'll have, all kinds of stuff happening and, you know, you'll have an easier time to edit it and stuff. So this, again, just to kind of reiterate what we did, it created the motion design with using frame by frame animations. And I also included all the parameters, which is the opacity and the effects, hence the, the fade in, the drop, the move, and the opacity. That's the glow, which is the effects. Those are the only three parameters that Photoshop can execute on frame by frame animation. However, there's a more advanced approach to this with motion design. Um, Keep in mind, Adobe owns Premiere, After Effects, Adobe Animate, which purchased Flash a long time ago. So it has the capability to inherit all the tools from other software across all their different platforms and applications like Photoshop, for example, has a more robust, advanced timeline than this one. This one's good for lots of things. Like 90% of the internet stuff I see can be done using this method that I showed you. However, if you want to get into the more advanced version of animation, you could create a timeline, which is what I'm getting at next, a video timeline. This is a frame by frame timeline. The one I'm going to show you now is the video keyframe timeline. So let's start from scratch. It's an easier way to kind of cover this in broader depth than from an introductory perspective. So I'm going to put this thing away here. Don't save it. And let's create a new file, okay? I did give you some resources to use. So basically, grab the ones from here. So class 14, wrapping it up, video motion design.zip, okay? So that's the one you wanna grab. So if you download this folder here, you'll get the file. You get to extract the folder. You should get something like this, and in there you'll see a volleyball, a sport I like to play occasionally. Um, then we have an Expedia logo, which I utilized just earlier. And then I have the a web page, a WebP file, which is an image. And then you have a production file that I already used as a demo. And then I have an MP4 video. Okay, so if you do the MP4 video, there's a little bit of music in there as well. Okay, so this covers a lot more bases in terms of advanced animation because you'll see rotation, scale, you have audio, scale again, motion. Okay, things we can't do in the frame by frame animation because you can't do scale, you can't do rotate. Okay, and you can't put audio. The only way you can put audio is if you produce an MP4, like a video file, because animated GIFs don't have the capacity to carry audio. Okay, so you can't really put audio in the GIFs, but you can put audio in MP4 files, which are like movie files. This will be good for like a YouTube commercial, or even a website. Just upload a video file. Okay, so you can definitely create an Photoshop can not only create GIFs, but it can also create MP4 files. I keep saying YouTube. All right, so let's recreate this one. I already have the finished file here for you in case you want to kind of dive right into it. But I rather you do the basics, just to learn from basic scratch. I'm just going to delete all this. So I have the volleyball. I have two elements to animate the logo, the volleyball. We're promoting Expedia, another travel destination type of promotion. There's a nice picture of the beach with some sand and the ocean and an audio file. This is just a file I picked up from one of my libraries. Can you guys hear my audio, by the way, when I play it? Because I know I'm a video playback. It wasn't playing. Can you hear my audio? Yes or no?
No,
Yes.
it's
Sorry, yes or no? Sorry, what was that?
Yes.
You can hear my audio? Perfect. Okay. So the music you can hear, right? All right. Um, So open this up, like download it, and what we're gonna do is open this up in Photoshop first as the background. So I'm gonna right click, open with Photoshop. What's a WebP file? So these files are tricky because just to show you a definition of WebP file. So WebP file is an image file format that uses lossless or lossy compression to create a smaller, high quality images for web. Okay. So it's an open source image formatted developed by Google to help websites a little faster. It's also designed to replace older image formats like JPEG, PNG, and GIF. The problem with this WebP file or WebP format is it wasn't compatible with Adobe. But recently, Adobe is able to open WebP files. It's like a JPEG. Okay. Google made their own JPEG basically. So they called it WebP. Okay. WebP from Web Pixels, I'm assuming. All right, so that's pretty much it's a more modern image format. I'm sure you're gonna come across of it if you haven't already. And it's just sometimes it used to be problematic, but now it seems to work okay. This is a WebP format. Okay, even if you right click to open it, Photoshop doesn't even show up here. Illustrator does because I think natively Illustrator can place it better. But if you do open Photoshop first, right? And create your, let's say our scene that we're gonna be making here. We're gonna create a new document. Let's say we're matching our dimensions for the website. We're gonna go 900 pixels by 300 pixels. Okay, try this again. At 72 dots per inch, RGB color with a white background. We're gonna hit the create button. There it is. I'm going to use the crop tool just to make it a little taller. I think I'm going to make it 400 pixels. You can see my numbers go up here as I go along. You can also use, of course, the crop feature up here. You can also go to image size and resize it accordingly. So I'm going to make it even 400. Take off this proportions because I want to keep it 900 by 400 pixels. I just think it'll fit better with the beach scene that I have there. And I do have the generative AI tab open. Maybe I'll go over this again later just to kind of make things appear. So we're going to hide the bar, or we can also show the bar by using that menu as well. We'll keep it away from now. Of course, we need the timeline, so make sure that's also brought down and visible. I, I can I can tab it in by clicking on the wrong tab, of course. Just mess these up. All right, here we go. There we go. That's how you separate tabs. You open them, then you drag them out. Let's put this back over here. And let's put this down here. So you want the timeline to be down here, not up there. And instead of frame animation, today we're going to be creating a video timeline. So click on this little drop down menu on the right and make sure you select video timeline. It's the more advanced form of animation. And then you have to acknowledge it after you select it by clicking on the button. So please go ahead and do that, and you'll get whatever is here, like a layer 0, it'll show up as layer 0, basically, right? I suggest you put your ingredients in there first, like your background and stuff. Don't worry about the elements. You can bring them in after. So I can just do it now. I can go File, Place Embedded. Now, if I do linked, I can replace the background. That's the advantage. So maybe I'll embed the background, but I can link the other files. Okay. So let's bring in this WebP file of the beach. Perfect. And I can maybe scale it accordingly. I can make it a little bigger. Look a nice cropped feature here, like that. Press enter. And there's my background. This is your timeline here. This is called a zoom. So you can zoom in and zoom out. This is what you want to do this when you're doing a short segment or a sequence of an animation. So if I move this little bar here on the right, I'm basically zooming into the timeline. It's like zooming into the image, but this is now controlling the timeline because it could get lengthy. How about if you're doing like a 2-hour movie? Okay. You really want to make this smaller so you can see every second, every minute. Not that you're going to do 2 hours movie in Photoshop. The most I would recommend you do in Photoshop, as far as video creation, is 30 seconds. Don't do more than that. And that's enough to do a commercial on television. Okay. We're going to do a 5 second segment, maybe a 10 second, just to stretch it a bit. Now it's set to five. Okay. 5 frames, or it should be 5 seconds, but it's got the frames in there. 5 seconds with the frames in there. That's their setup. Um, we don't need this layer here. I'm just going to delete it. Notice when you delete the layer here, it affects it over here. It also has an audio track option with the background that's here. Remember the terminology space to time. We accumulate space this way. Also, we go that way vertically, and we distribute time horizontally. So we go from left to right. Okay. And this is your zoom in here. So get comfortable first with this, right? And second, let's start bringing in our other items. So we're going to have this play for 5 seconds, or something else will come in 5 seconds. So we're going to have maybe at the first second, which is here, okay, at the first second, and you can even control this playhead at the right time. You can even literally, I don't know if you see my cursor here, I'm moving this left and right to show you how you position it at the 1 second mark. So that's exactly 1 second, okay? I think the info panel might also work. Let me see if I can get the info panel. No, the info panel doesn't work. It's only for graphics and stuff. I thought maybe I give you some extra material when it comes to the controlling the playhead. So nope. And the properties, perhaps, right? Right. So they don't have the thing either. There's no other palettes. Okay, so this is you're only stuck with this one here. Okay, unless they come up with another palette to better control this. But basically, control this by moving it around. You can see your timer down here, and it is. Look, this is not supposed to replace After Effects, which is a more robust version of. They use it for motion design, animation, effects, and things like that for movies, high-end production stuff. So it is like the industry standard now. Photoshop inherited the same tools in here. So I'm giving you like an After Effects crash course right now by showing you this timeline. The difference is if I open After Effects, it's got way more tools and features strictly for video editing, motion design, and effects. But the most important part of the program is what I'm showing you here, which is this part. Once you master this, the other stuff is pretty simple and self-explanatory. So let's go ahead and finish this animation here. So we're going to start at 1 second. Okay. So what happens at 1 second is maybe even at the beginning, actually. So the thing to remember is where you position the timeline is very important, or sorry, the playhead according to the timeline. So if I move this near the beginning, so it's like, 10th of a second in. I know it doesn't look according to the time exactly, but let's say even you can eyeball it. You don't have to get technical. Around here somewhere, I'm going to go to File, Place Linked, and I'm going to open this volleyball up. And this volleyball, I'm going to double click on it, resize it, and position it right over here. Right? We can have it roll, bounce, do a lot of different things on the stage. Notice how, because my playhead was positioned here, it extended the volleyball all the way across. So you can technically move this around as well and have it start and finish at any interval. So you can actually go ahead and do this. So the volleyball only is going to show up from, half a second in to 2 3/4 seconds out. So there's your positioning here. Um, so the best thing to do is when you bring it in, I mean, you could start at the beginning if it's easier. Just go like this, then have it go all the way at the end. So you can stretch it the same length as your background. If that's the case, then the whole duration of 5 seconds would be the volleyball coming in, bouncing off I just used the chair for that previous example, and then coming back. This will demonstrate motion, the motion design feature in the timeline. So motion, rotation, and scale. All the transforming features that are available that we could not do in a traditional frame by frame sequence. So if I'm going to open this up, let's call this simple here, volleyball. If I open up this little triangular little option here, the twirl down, you can see all the different things I just talked about. So transform, opacity, and style. So we're going to go right to the beginning here, the very beginning, right? And we're going to activate this transform. We're not going to do opacity and style for the volleyball because we're just going to move it, resize it, rotate it. Transform will cover all that, no problem. So as long as it's activated the way it did it by clicking on this little clock icon, that's very tedious. So just pay attention to the little things. This little diamond thing shows up. This is called the keyframe. So what happens now is when you move this over to frame, I don't know, maybe, 2.5 seconds in, right? What happens is if you move the ball now, let's say over here, it'll create by default another keyframe. So it's acknowledging the fact that you want to move the ball. Not only moving the ball, but we also would like to rotate it. So we're going to go to maybe minus 180. Minus 180 will create a rotation, or 180, right? So it'll go like this. So now the ball will rotate and move at the same time. If you hold shift, it'll snap to the keyframe because sometimes you might not align it properly. So just be very, very careful with this. People get really confused with this stuff because it's hypersensitive, eh? So you got to really kind of be aware of where you're clicking, what you're selecting at every given time, especially with the keyframes and stuff. So if you're doing this, make sure you stop exactly at the keyframe because then you can also do scale. So if I do Command or Control T, if I do scale, it'll do both. It'll do rotation and scale together. See, like this, like that. So once you establish your keyframes, it's easy to um, add these properties. When the ball hits the chair, it's going to bounce right back to the left. So I simply go all the way to the end of the key. Maybe I'll go before. I'll stop right there. And then I'm going to just move the ball back to the left. Notice how it created another keyframe when I did that. Some people like to create a keyframe by clicking on this little diamond, but you don't have to. As soon as you do anything, it'll create a keyframe for you, which is better because it's easier to manage that way. I'm also going to increase the size of the ball. So Command T, make it nice and big again, press enter. So basically the ball is going to go bounce back and forth. But it's going to rotate. It's going to rotate back here. So I got to add a rotation as well here. Instead of 180, I'm going to do, I don't know why the minuses don't work. It's really puzzling sometimes. If I do maybe minus 150 might work because it's just how it is with the 180. I'll keep it at, let me do a minus 180. See how this will look. If you type in 360, right, you can't do past 180. So you got to do 180 at a time. I don't know why, guys, they did that, but I've worked with other software. You can type in 720. It'll do like 3 spins. You know what I mean? So this is the only quarrel I have with this, if I have any, is the rotation. It's not perfected. But if you just want to keep it 180 at a time, that's also okay. Let me do minus 160. Okay, let's see how that works. You know what? Let's just do 0 because it's going to go back. So it's already a 180 over here, right? So from 180 back to 0. So something like that, it'll work. Again, rotation might not be something that you have to use anyways, but if you do, there it is right there, okay? So let's press play. So the ball's going to go, rotate, bounce, shrink in size, bounce back. Things we can't do in traditional frame by frame animation. That's why keyframes are powerful because you can do all these things. Okay. So rotation and scale. All right, so when that happens now, what happens next? So the ball can actually exit the stage and we can have something else introduced around this point of time. So I'm going to go right to the end and let's introduce the big promotion that we're doing, which is Expedia in this case. So we're going to go File, Place Embedded, and we're going to bring in the Expedia logo, right? And we're going to shrink it and move it in its position here. Press enter. So the logo will basically come in. Now it won't just come in, I'll do something else that's special. It'll scale and fade in at the same time. Again, we couldn't do this with the basic frame by frame animation. Not to say like this is better, it's just whatever works. Don't forget, all the other animations online are done, in a way more simpler fashion. The blinks, the flashes, the simple movements, the frame by frame switches, like that's all done easily using the tactics we used last week. This is the more advanced stuff. So if you find a need to do this, then this is how you do it. Okay, so this comes in, but the background doesn't last that long. So I'm just gonna move this a little, just gonna zoom out a bit more so I can see it. I'm gonna stretch the background further so it matches my Expedia insertion, the logo, right? So what happens with the Expedia logo is it comes in, and let's address that now by adding a keyframe. So let's go ahead and expand it. You can collapse this one. The volleyball's done. We're going to address the transform option and the opacity. You know what? And the style. Let's do all three. Why not? We'll go all out with this one. So what that means is we select the logo and we resize it in size. Command T. So we shrink it. So we shrink it. You know what? Style might be too much. It might just confuse the whole thing. I'm gonna take off the style. I'm just gonna keep it simple here. To delete it, just hit delete. Right? We don't need style. We're just gonna do opacity and fade. It's gonna look easier and more professional. Okay. And so it's gonna be shrunk smaller, and the opacity will be, see, 0, right? Like nothing. Which means by the time we get to the midway point, which is around here somewhere, like 3 seconds in, okay, that's when sometimes you can't see it. So what I prefer to do in this case is create a keyframe manually by clicking on this little diamond here. See, there's the keyframe, and click on this little diamond here. So you can add keyframes this way, or just by simply moving the graphic or doing anything, in combination with the item, we'll do that same thing. But just be careful because you want to be in control, and either this way or that way is how you add keyframes. So now what we do is we increase the opacity to 100%. Okay, so it's going to basically fade in, but I also wanted to zoom in at the same time. So I'm going to go back to the Expedia logo, make sure it's in the right keyframe setting, hit Command or Control T, which is under free transform right here. I just like to press Command T and then simply enlarge the logo. So now we have this. Zoom in and fade at the same time. And this is more, professional. You see this a lot with logos and stuff coming in, whether it's television or commercials, right? And then maybe we could add an effect after. Why not? Maybe from here to there. Okay, let's click on the style, which is the effect. I'm gonna double click. Let's do a nice outer glow. We'll douse it down a bit. It's a little too strong. Right, so it's really small to begin with. It's fine. By the way, because we added it, it's going to be everywhere now, which is okay. I mean, because it's there, right? I mean, you could you could mute it all the way just by simply reducing the opacity, so you can have like really nothing show up. But then when you get to the end keyframe, which is over here, or you can just extend it if you wish, we can add another style of opacity. and there you can actually enhance the glow, like the actual effect and stuff. Right? So now you're gonna have it glowing. So fade, sorry, zoom, fade at the same time, and then the nice subtle glow. It's a lot more smoother and more professional, I think, when it comes to the animation process. And that's it. That wraps up our commercial. You want to do other things, you simply go file, place more additional items, and just keep adding more time to the right. This is a 10-second production, like I promised you. So let's see if we can go further here. Let's extend the background. 10 frames is here, or 10 seconds. I'm going to go right at, look, end at 10:07. I got to zoom in to get this properly optimized. So 10 seconds, 10:02, whatever. Doesn't have to be too picky because sometimes they drop the frames too, depending on the actual sequence and stuff. Because it's technically, if it's 30 frames a second, it's 29.97. So sometimes it does do an offset by a frame or two. It's called drop frame. So again, nothing, not to get too technical. It happens on television, production, all kinds of exporting formats. All right. So this is how you basically do the whole, advertising using the timeline. All I did was utilize this feature here called the keyframes, right? So now let's save the file first. We're going to go save as, and this will be all of the Expedia adverts. Expedia vacation advert. So we'll save it as a Photoshop file first, right? Because the Photoshop file basically saves all the work we've done so far. Just to show you, I'll close the file just like that. And I'll go back here. Of course, it didn't save in the right place. I saved it in the other one there. Where did I save it? Let's find out. I saved it in my WDDM folder under class 14 advanced animation. Okay. I'll save it onto the desktop. I'll do it one more time in our folder, which is this one here. Save. And back to my point, when you do save the Photoshop file, okay, so there's our Photoshop file that I just saved. It'll open up exactly where you left off. Even if this is like missing the timeline and you see something like this, it looks like a normal design, but it's not. If you open up the timeline, you will see that there's more to it than just your, static design with your layers. So just keep in mind in case you don't see it, some people panic like, oh no, what happened to my work? You gotta open the timeline and see whatever's there. Okay. Now to produce a movie out of this, and literally I mean a movie, like an MP4, and again, these are short little movie clips you can create in Photoshop. Really fun, really, really handy as a tool. Because as you know now, we're into the video age, whether it's social media and the internet and everything is video has a lot more conversion in terms of advertising and attention grabbing than just like images and stuff. So if you can convert your creatives into videos and motion designs and stuff, you're gonna get a lot more bang for your buck, let's say, when it comes to advertising, production, and all kinds of stuff. Okay. People get way more attracted by things that are moving than people are just things that are just sitting still. So to create a movie out of this, oh, by the way, I forgot my audio, so let's do that next part as well. I can make this a GIF if I want. Let's say I don't want a movie. I want to make an animated GIF. Well, in that case, I'll go to export, save for web. I'll show you both options here. Okay. So this will be an animated GIF because that's the only one that'll work in terms of just an image animation. If I press the play button, it's a little slow because it's processing. It's going to play a little faster when I render it. Hopefully, it's 6 MB. It's pretty big video file size. All right, let's see it on the real stage. I'm going to save it as a GIF under my desktop here in the video motion design images only. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Doesn't look bad in terms of the quality. I mean, considering it's limited to 256 color palette pixels. Um, I'll be honest with you, the whole intent to do this is for an MP4. I wouldn't do a GIF doing all this stuff. But here it is anyways. Let's quickly check it out. Okay. To make it faster, I would have made the time less. So 10 seconds may be too long. I would have condensed the timing to make it a little faster because it does play 30 frames a second basically, right? So it's like set to like no delay. All right. So we could make it faster. And to do that, I mean, it's easy too, right? Just in case you want to do it, here's what you do. Basically, you take the volleyball, watch this. You segment the duration to be a little quicker, but be careful because the keyframes also need to go as well. So you might have to position the keyframes here, maybe there, and move this in a bit. Okay. Then you move this over here as well, the Expedia logo. Perhaps it'll overlap, maybe. Why not? By the way, be careful because the keyframes should move as well. I wish I can select everything together. It does move it together, but the only thing it doesn't do when you condense the time, it does drop the keyframes. So that's when that's what the pain points are. You gotta somehow move this. But if you hold shift, it should line up evenly. Again, you shouldn't have to do this, okay? I'm just showing you the what ifs kind of thing, right? So now I made it a lot shorter, basically. Okay, it's gonna be a little faster, okay, because I made it shorter and the same effects was executed, right? That's how you can make it shorter and faster. In case you have to edit your GIF, that's how you do it, okay? But if you're creating a movie, like an MP4 file, which is it's more intended for something like this. We're gonna put like an actual soundtrack and stuff. Then you have to take a different approach. By the way, I'm not gonna save this because I just showed you kind of what to do in case you have to. I'm gonna go to revert to the old file that I saved, so it's back to the 10-second video. What I'm gonna do in this case is I'm gonna bring in my audio track. So make sure you have an MP3 file or other formats that are recognizable over here. Okay, so it's available in the same folder. And I'm gonna go right into Photoshop and place my audio track down here where it says audio track. Make sure you insert it in the beginning. So the playhead should be matched right at the beginning of the timeline. And you click on the little music, a little icon here, and you go to add audio. Drag and drop works too. You can also go to file, I think import, but I honestly, the intention is to do it this way. Just go add audio, click on the MP3 file. Notice how it recognizes it. Click open and give it a moment or two because it does take a while for it to process. It is an audio file after all. This is a long one, by the way. So I'll show you how to trim it and insert it nicely in there. By zooming out, I can see the audio kind of end there. So I'm going to move it all the way, just contract it all the way to my commercial, which is right there. Now I can zoom back in and finite the whole execution part. There it is. I can also do, if you right click, you can do the volume. You can also do fade in and fade out. I can have the audio fade in at half a second in, and I can fade it out half a second before the movie stops. So it'll be a nice subtle fade in, fade out. The volume could be a little louder. I can spike it up a bit to like 150 or 144%. Okay, so it'll be louder. And this way it'll be more gained. And now you'll see this, right? And the volleyball just disappears. So I will have the volleyball also stay there for the whole duration. It's nice to see part of it just hanging out there, right? And that's it. There's a commercial. So we do a file save, and that saves the audio as well as your Photoshop file. And the file size should increase as well. Let me just see how big the file size is. 2 megs. It's not that bad. I think it's still using the audio as a resource file. So make sure it's around the same location. I don't think it embeds audio. It just use it as a source. So make sure the audio is not missing. Because if I delete it, I'm just curious. I'm troubleshooting here. See, it'll say, hey, cannot find the linked assets. Where's the audio file? So make sure the audio file is there. Otherwise, it won't play the audio. See? So keep the audio file here. Okay. Don't delete it. All right, let's see now. How do you make this a video? How do you publish it on YouTube? Okay. I'm not going to get into YouTube publishing stuff, as you probably it's pretty simple to figure out. You go to you all probably know YouTube, but now you create an account or a channel and you have the upload option to just upload videos. Okay. But to make the video, to do that, you have to go to, now I gotta reopen this file because it's messed up now, thinking, hey, where's your audio file? I'm gonna reopen it. There it is. Now I got no errors. So how do I make this into an actual YouTube MP4 production? So then you go to File, Export, and on the bottom here you have what's called Render Video. So render video is how you do just that. So when you do render video, it'll take a little time to do its configuration, but basically you're creating a name. It's an MP4 file. It's using an H.264 format. We can switch between, DPX and QuickTime, which was an older format for Apple. This one works really well because it gives you a good compression, so I would stick with it. The quality, you can stick with high quality. You can also configure it for like TikToks and iPhones and mobile devices. You can do HD. Okay, I think you have like 4K even. Okay, but honestly, stick with the size you're making, which is a custom size. Okay, so you want to make sure you set up, let's say, an iPhone size for TikTok, and you do a TikTok video. You don't just you can't make this look like, you can't have this. It's a landscape design. You can't just convert it to portrait. It's gonna get cut off. So plan it beforehand and then execute after. Basically, you can do anything you want once you know how to do the execution. So for now, it's going to be a YouTube commercial, and that's the size we're going to go with, which is again 900 by 400 pixels. So that's our document size. And you can configure other sizes as well, but do it beforehand. So you set it up before, just like you do a movie poster or a book cover. You set it up before, and then you place the graphics after. The frame rate is 30 frames a second. That's the standard television production speed, 30 frames a second. And then you have everything else left alone. So basically, I didn't do anything. I just explained to you what this is. And if you have to edit it or do some stuff, you can, but make sure you do it beforehand. So if you do like a video, let's say you're doing a television commercial, I would set it up from the get-go to be like 1920 by 1080p. And that's like a regular high definition format. If it's 4K, it's going to be around the 4000 pixel range. Okay, so you set it up that way, then you start the production. So for this now, it's ready to go. We're going to hit the render button, and it's going to render the MP4 file in the same folder as my Photoshop file. So it's going to be right next to it. All right, let's put this away. Let's go to our, oh, it's ended up on my desktop here. I think that's right. By the way, there was a path option. I did select the desktop, so it didn't go in the folder. It went right there instead. And let's play it. Here we go. All right. And again, you can continue it, make a good ending kind of thing, put a capture slogan, whatever. I just wanted to show you how to do this in case you still have some time. Well, let's do tomorrow. You don't have to really do this for your project. I just want you to know how to do this going forward for your own use, okay? If you feel like taking on the challenge and doing this, go ahead. But I don't want to stress you guys out, especially I know it's the last week of school and I'm sure you have other tons of stuff to do as well. All right, so this is fine. So now what? Well, let's just say we want to switch a few things around, like this logo and other things. Well, make sure the size is the same. This is technically, 2560 by 751 pixel dimensions. So to replace that with something else, you want to make sure it matches the size. Let's say we want to do another company called, was it Trivago? What's the other? I don't see too many Trivago ads lately, but let's see, we do Trivago. Right? This is our next logo, let's say. So I'm going to save this image onto my desktop here. Because you're spending a lot of money and effort and time making a commercial. Would it be nice if you can just switch out the brands and make a different commercial for someone else? So it's a little smart way to do some, various productions at the same time. So you open the file, right? Here you can clearly see we put a lot of, let's say we spent a lot of time and resources doing a commercial like this, 30 seconds, as long as it is. You can easily now replace these graphics. I'll just replace the logo just to give you the example. And of course, you can replace anything, the background, the ball, the logo, everything. What you can't replace is the motion because that's something you handcrafted yourself. These graphics are interchangeable. This stuff is not because you created that, right? So what you do is you right click and you would do what's called replace oh, here we go, contents. So it looks a little different all of a sudden. So replace contents, okay? And you go to the new logo, which is Trivago. So it's the same size as this one. I kind of eyeballed it, right? And there's the Trivago logo. All right. Well, it will work the same. It should, even the glow and everything, right? Like you can resize it a bit slightly if you think it's too big. Okay, and then go with that. But that's how easy it is for you to replace different cast members and such. Okay. The background's easy to replace. You just have to do, put a different background basically. Maybe I'll do an invert. Okay. Maybe that was too harsh. I'll do an actual, I'll do image adjustments. You want to do with the background? I'll do something really cool actually. I'm gonna duplicate it. I'm gonna do Command J. So I have two backgrounds. I'll show you a cool effect just to finish it off nicely. Right. So here I have two backgrounds. Okay. You have this one and you have that one. Okay. This original background, what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to go to image adjustments and I'm going to do what's called, oh, I can't desaturate it unless I convert it to a normal layer. Let's do that. Just click OK. Well, how about just rasterizing it? Maybe that'll work. I don't want to do any type of adjustment layers. I'm just going to rasterize the layer. I'm going to also rasterize. Both layers are rasterized, which means I can go to this original layer, go to image adjustments, and I'll do what's called a desaturate. So it's black and white. So it's black and white. Okay, so it's a nice little black and white production. And it switches to color when the Trivago logo pops up. Because from this to that, when the ball hits the chair, that's when uh, that's when the color happens, maybe. So if I want to time it that way, then I move this over here. So then it instantly changes to color, like magic. See? Boom, color. And then logo comes in. But and the Trivago logo can come in a little earlier this way, right? But I don't want the color just to show up. I want it to fade in. So for that to happen, I'm simply going to go to this layer, open up its properties down here, the transformation properties. And in this case, I'm just going to apply the opacity keyframe. And I'm going to go further down this way and apply another opacity keyframe. So I have two opacity keyframes, which means this one will be 100%. And if I go to the first one, right? The first one, I'm going to make it 0%. So from 0, it'll fade into 100. See how nice and gradual that is, right? So it's not just abruptly adding color. So from this, it'll smoothly transition to that scene. Okay, some other cool things you can do with your backgrounds, images, any type of thing you want to position here in place and make some kind of a production. All right, let's make our second production video here. We're going to save this as version 2. So we'll call it advert 02. I always add zeros because of the 99 prefix. You have a 2-digit flexibility. I don't think you need to go past that. And unless you create 100 different files, you might go 002. That's for like, when you have like mass production with, a lot of files and stuff. So then we go to File, Export, Render Video again. And this will be called Advert 2 MP4. Again, the location is the desktop. I can just change it if I want and click on my video motion design folder and choose that as my destination. All the other settings stay the same, 900, 400, frame rate is 30. So basically nothing you're changing except hit the render button and off it goes. So now I've produced two different video commercials from Photoshop. All right, let's see how they both worked out. Another thing I'm curious about is the duration. So this is 10 seconds exactly. See the number 10 there? Well, this was the second one. Okay. I'll play the first one first. So again, 10 seconds. All right, and this is version 2. All right, I would make the animation a little quicker with the logo, but that's all about little adjustments and stuff. All in all, it's a really, really fun and a great tool that Photoshop has, inherited from its sister program, After Effects. And now you can do more than just frame by frame animations. You can do the keyframes and video animations right from Photoshop into your whatever media formats you want to produce. All right, so hope you found this lesson interesting. Just something I thought I'd share with you just to wrap up the semester. Like I said, we had an extra class for presentations, and you guys are doing those probably in your other classes, and that's fine. I think it's also the size of your class. You do have like 40 students, as opposed to we had like a lot less before. We would do simpler one lesson presentations. So things that have changed over the years, and that's fine. I think presentations are great, but they're not mandatory. It's a good way to present your work. I always encourage students to do that, but if we can't fit it in all the time, that's okay too. All right, so this wraps up today's video. I hope you guys had fun. It's not a goodbye because I'll see you next semester. So I wish you all great health. Stay well and enjoy the time you have off. And I'll see you in the next semester and the new year when you come back. All right. So bye for now, and I'll see you guys later. And enjoy your break.
I
Thank
have a
you.
question.
1 second. Let me just stop the recording first. Okay. All right. So again, have a good break, and I'll see you when you come back. Bye for now.